In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness. Welcome to episode number 104 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is positivity. Our quote of the day comes to us from Matt Cameron. Live life to the fullest and focus on the positive. I'm excited to bring you today's episode, as I had a lot of fun speaking with our guest today. Elizabeth McCourt is quite an interesting woman with many, many talents. It will be impossible to miss her positivity or her love for life. She definitely gets it, and I'm so glad she was a guest on our show and shared her views on the importance of abundance and having an abundant mindset for life. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Elizabeth, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Christopher.
So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
I am always ready to bring it.
I knew that'd be your answer. So the number objective of our show is to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you had a time in your life where you had the chance to give in or give up, but you didn't. You kept on going and didn't quit.
You know, I've had so many times because resilience is really a part of who I am. And I think one time that was actually pretty big is I temporarily moved back to New York 19 years ago because my father was dying, and I left my law practice. I was just waiting tables to kill some time, and then I fell into financial advisor recruiting. I kind of had to totally retool myself. And believe it or not, I started on September 10th, 2001, recruiting financial advisors. And certainly we both know what happened on September 11th. And so that was a time where I can't tell you that anyone really wanted to talk to me about moving to another firm at that time. And I knew I was a great recruiter and a coach and all that, but that was a really difficult time period. And I got to a point where it was 6 months into it. I hadn't made any placements. I was going on vacation, and basically my boss at the time gave me like the do or die conversation that, you know, we're going to cut you off. This is sort of not working out. And I just persevered. I knew it was going to work out. I knew I had put in the work, and I didn't give up. And that year I ended up being the most successful most successful recruiter that year in my office, because I refused to, use anything as an excuse of, me not being able to get it done. But it took everything I had. It's a full commission business, and to have that long of a dry spell, I was the person who waited the longest to make their first placement due to the timing of when I started on that side of the business. And so it was really trying both emotionally and intellectually during that time, not to give up and not to just throw in the towel on it. But I just knew what I was doing was working.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And obviously, September 10th of 2001 was a tough time in that regard. If you don't mind me asking, what was going through your mind, or what did you put in your mind, or what did you put in front of your eyes as far as that tough time where you had the longest runway from beginning to end? Was it something somebody said, or was it something you were doing, or kind of a mixture of a lot of different things?
I will tell you that when someone tells me I can't do something, there is almost no other motivating thing for me that I'm not going to be successful at something, or I'm not going to do something. Then I'm sort of like a bulldog, and I just put my teeth into it, and I say, you just watch me. I can do it. So it's sort of been, I will tell you, I'll give you that one example, but even starting my own venture as an entrepreneur, same thing. I had to totally retool myself. And I'm just someone who has a very positive attitude. I believe in good. I'm tenacious. I'm not scared of failing. I am scared, but I sort of have this mindset of be scared and do it anyway, because it's supposed to feel uncomfortable when you're really pushing that envelope of risk and opportunity for yourself.
You should trademark that quote. Be scared and do it anyway.
I'm going to write that down.
I'm going to get it before you get it. So if you wouldn't mind, just if you could briefly tell our listeners just a little bit about who you are and what you're doing today.
Sure. So I have the expertise. Obviously, I told you I was a financial advisor recruiter for 17 years. I still do it a little bit, but mostly right now as an entrepreneur, I do a tiny bit of recruiting, but mostly I'm doing leadership consulting and coaching on the international perspective. I work for International Business School and work for corporations. And then I also get to do professional speaking on resilience, mindset, even empathy and recruiting. And then I'm a writer as well. So by being an entrepreneur, I get to do everything that I love and do it on a global scale.
I don't think you do enough things. So maybe between now and the next time we talk, you could add a couple more things you do.
I know that's what everyone says to me. I don't know. It's just a beautiful thing I'm a very versatile person, and I have one rule. I work with good people, and that drives me in everything that I do. That's what I follow. It's like really working with high quality, good people, good organizations, and then doing, great leadership work in all of those avenues.
Now, I appreciate you touching that for a second. I just have a pretty candid question, if you don't mind me asking, is knowing what you just said about with good people, good organizations. If you had to give 30-second advice for maybe our listeners, if they have somebody that's either in their corner or on their team that's maybe not, I wouldn't say a good person, but maybe not gelling, what would you recommend? Is there a way where you can get those people kind of off your team or off your bus professionally?
I think I know you've dealt with this as well. I think being really honest and letting things go gives you more room for things that are working and people you are connecting with. So I think really trusting your gut. If something doesn't feel right, and having an honest conversation about it, not only with them, but with yourself. Like, what do you truly want to do? What do you feel in your gut? And then having that conversation with them, and then letting it go if it doesn't work. And also knowing that when you let something go, you're making more room for things that are supposed to be in your life and business that you are supposed to have. So it's not looking at it from a loss perspective, but looking at it as making room for abundance.
It's interesting that you use the word abundance. It has a special place in my profession, my personal life. And just to touch on it is I had to make some tough decisions within the last 2 months as far as getting some of those wrong people and some of those what I call positivity vampires off of my bus. So like you said, you can get the right people on and then make that switch into abundance, because I think that's a word that I use often. It has a lot of personal meaning to me, because when I do my coaching and speaking, a lot of people will focus just on or fixate on an actual number, meaning, okay, I want to make $100,000 or $150,000. And I tell people or recommend to people is make a switch from not just financial number, but get the word abundance into your vocabulary. And it's really neat that you touched on that, because I think it's pretty important.
No, I totally agree. And when I looked at your stuff and I've listened to your podcast too, I thought you and I are very much on the same page with that. And we deal with a lot of the similar people in finance in the business world. And it's easy to get caught up in that numbers game. But you and I both know it's not only about the numbers. If it's only about the numbers, you're just not seeing the whole picture of how you're running your organization, your business, your life, and you're missing out on opportunity.
No, it's interesting that you say that, and I think a lot of companies and individuals don't really focus on the overall picture. And I was just interviewed about an hour ago for a media outlet that's coming out in a couple of weeks, and the gentleman asked me something that was interesting. Is he said, "What happens when a company and the top level executives don't gel with with the employees and to have the me versus we attitude. I think it comes back to some of that abundance component where you want to think that you have a bigger picture or a bigger place in a, let's say for a company's perspective, as opposed to just saying, okay, our sales goal is $10 million and I'm just a salesperson and all that upper management cares about is that I do my numbers, as opposed to, really getting down to it. So I think it's pretty interesting you touched on that.
Yeah, no, it's so important. I mean, the dynamics of the workplace have changed, as you and I both know. And if you're not looking beyond the scope of what number do you want to make, you're actually not going to get the maximum value and performance out of the team.
No, I couldn't agree more, and I think it's important to focus on certain numbers because you have to from a business perspective, but it's also important, I think, to look bigger picture. So you mentioned Writer before. I believe you have some exciting news as a launch of March 6th, if you wouldn't mind just telling our listeners a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I actually became a novelist on March 6th. I published my first novel. It's called Sin in the Big Easy. It's a mystery set in New Orleans and a legal thriller. I did used to be a lawyer in a past life. And I like to say the story is, the speech I'm doing with it is how to write a novel in 15 years or less. Let me show you how not to do what I did. So that's the leadership lesson in all of it. But it is really quite a thrill to be able to publish this novel. And I will tell you, it happened. I was pitching my nonfiction book that I've been working on and mentioned I had a novel. And they said, oh, can I see it? I said, oh, sure. And they said, oh, wow, this is actually good. Can we publish it? And I was like, oh, my gosh, I got a contract. And that happened last year and it just launched. So it's really quite a thrill to see this long time dream come true.
Well, congratulations on it. I just had that's great news. And I think I heard an interesting quote for a show that will come out before this goes live where the gentleman was a writer himself, and he said that most people, or he believes everybody has a book in them, but unfortunately they die with the book still inside them.
I really think that's true. And I think that was part of the impetus for me really wanting to get this book out. And it's been finished for a long time. I've been editing and working on it. And I actually did have unfortunately, a few really dear friends of mine pass away along with my mom. And it's like, you just get this one chance. So why not just put it out there? Just do it. Just be courageous and not care so much about if people are going to like it or people, just getting less self-conscious, particularly when it's a novel and just getting it done, because we just get one chance on this world to do good things, to make a difference, to do things like writing a novel or whatever it is you do. And don't hold back, get it out there.
No, I like that advice. And I think we do get fixated on certain things along the way, and we do have one life. So I also just wanted to say I apologize for your loss. I know it's definitely a tough time, and when things happen all together, it kind of snowballs.
It's true. I will say though, it's, in a way, the sort of the beauty of it is it just gives you that feeling of what are you waiting for? And so I use that not so much as a sadness, but as a strength. And certainly in my coaching, I think one of my greatest strengths there is to be with difficulty and to be with challenge without judgment. And having a lot of loss in my own life really helps me be a more powerful partner and coach to the people I work with, without me having to tell that story. But I have that with, and I know that really, really makes me able to have empathy and to let people get through what they're working for.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think it's important to be able to take all different walks of life and experiences and really take it to a successful coaching business.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, if you had to define yourself in one word, what would that word be?
I think my number one word has to be positivity. I am a glass half full kind of gal. I always look on the bright side, and I know that's gotten me through challenges. And it's funny. It's why a friend of mine who's he's a professional rock climber always took me with her, and she just said, "Well, you just have a good attitude, so I know you'll do fine." So I really had that, just being positive and never giving up. That's pretty much me.
Unfortunately, we don't like positivity here, so we're gonna we'll have to edit that. No, I think it's important in life to really look at life from a different perspective, and especially in today's day and age, one of the things we always aim for with our shows is to connect with listeners. And I think it's easy to be positive. It's not simple, but it's easy where you can say, you know what, I'm going to make the best out of the situation and I'm going to make a positive out of it. That doesn't mean that everything is absolutely perfect. There's no way that is, but whatever happens to you, whatever hits you, you have one option, and something I've been talking about a lot is a quote that I'm going to try to coin, I guess, is you have the option to be bitter or you have the option to be better, but you can't be both. And it comes back to, I think, what you said about the positivity is life hits you, and sometimes for some people it continually hits you, and the question is, are you going to get bitter about it or are you going to get better about it?
No, I think that's really powerful. And I think I was taught from a very young age that, guess what? Sometimes things just aren't going to work out. They're just not going to work out the way you want them to. And it is your job to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and move forward. And that's exactly what we're talking about, is that ability to not fall into the abyss of failure, but to, okay, that did not work. How can I climb out of that? How can I maybe not do that, make it better, or move forward from there?
So got to ask you, just because we spoke about a quote, do you have a favorite quote?
I have so many quotes, but the one I saw most recently that I really love is a Hawaiian proverb. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
That's awesome. You have not seen me surf.
You haven't seen me surf either. I'm happy when I catch a wave, but I love that quote because it's really exactly what we're talking about. And my other favorite quote is from my mom, and I use this one in writing. She said, the things people want to read are the ones you don't want to tell. So to use that fearlessness and courage, and for writing, that's really what I use for writing when I'm stuck. I try and use that.
That's pretty deep, and I think if you really think about it, is it's probably something that a lot of authors and speakers and coaches should think about, not only just writing, but also how you go about your day-to-day life also.
Absolutely. We've got to be truthful, right? We've got to have integrity in what we do, and sometimes we have to say things that I never want to take someone out at the knees, but I want to tell them the truth so that they can be better and encourage them to get real with themselves so that whatever their goal is, they can achieve it. Just to give someone a pat on the back and tell them everything's so great, that's not actually always helpful.
No, I think that's good when you're a 2 and 3 and 4-year-old, but when it gets to we get later on in life, is you need some of that honesty. So because we're always looking to add value to our listeners, I was curious if you have either a daily or a morning ritual that you swear by.
Well, I am a triathlete, so working out is something that I do every morning, but I've done a little bit of a shift. I used to kind of jump out of bed gangbusters, and now I actually take a moment of gratitude of waking up, and just gratitude of what the day is going to bring, gratitude for my life, and perhaps a little meditation in there. And then I take some time and I do some kind of a workout, either swim, bike, run, some workout for a race I'm working towards, and then I have breakfast, and then I go on my day. And I try not to look at my phone. I do sometimes. I'm not very good, but I try not to get totally sucked in right away, and to take some moments before the day starts and I start going fast.
It's interesting. Over the last probably 3 or 4 months, I've seen a pretty significant, I don't want to say shift because it's not per se a shift, but a concentration on 3 of the words that you just talked about is exercise, gratitude, and meditation. And the other component, which you touched on, is pretty interesting, is not touching or trying not to touch your phone. And I can say it's something that I'm struggling with myself, is not grabbing that phone. And somebody said something many episodes ago is as soon as you grab your phone and you look at it, you automatically put yourself in a reactive state for the rest of the day. And it's very simplistic if you think about it, but it's hard to change. So for me, I've been trying to do the gratitude piece, and I've also tried to get into a little bit of the meditation. There's actually a meditation app, Headspace, that I'm kind of torn between, because I'm telling myself and my listeners, don't grab your phone, but now it's this, because this app is highly recommended. So I'm kind of at a loss and at a crossroads here.
Well, I think it's okay because I use a meditation app too. I like Headspace, and I use Breathe also, a couple of simple ones. And I think that's I feel like if you go into the email, that's when the trouble starts. But if you're just touching the app and you're doing a meditation, I think that can be an exception to the rule because you're not diving in to work phone reaction. You're trying to like calm yourself, and it's a great resource actually.
Okay, listeners, you heard it here. So if you take your phone and only touch a meditation app, it's okay.
I think that's a good rule, don't you?
I do.
Help both of us, right?
Awesome. I'm in. All right. So here's a different question. Assuming the 20-year-old version of yourself would have listened, what would be the one piece of advice you would have given to the 20-year-old Elizabeth?
Oh, when I was 20, I was living in Europe and study abroad, and I was really, really fearless then. And so I would just tell my 20-year-old self that to take this fearlessness and really use it right away. Like don't get scared. Like all those crazy trips you went on. I went to Romania when it was a U.S. advisory against, because they had just had their first democratic election, had an amazing experience. And so I would just remind myself that this is an amazing quality to have, and that it's going to be really useful for the rest of your life. So to really hold on to that and embrace that. And I think I actually have done that, but it was a really 20 years old was a fantastic time for me.
Now, follow-up question to that is, would the 20-year-old version of yourself listened?
I think that's a really good thought. I think the 20-year-old version of myself, I think my 20-year-old self felt more conservative, like I had to go in a conservative direction. And I think I would have gone into a more creative direction if I had listened at first. And I always say the next book I'm writing is about the nonlinear path to success. And so it served me, but maybe I would have gotten here faster had I listened to this good advice.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, which none of us know. But it's been interesting because I've asked that question now almost 100 times, and some of the answers have been just really interesting, and some of the answers have been very deep. But the reality is it's much easier to be a Monday morning quarterback than it is during the game.
Exactly.
So if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, it's such a good question. I've heard you ask that before, and I was trying to think, who would I really want to have dinner with? And I guess I could say, since I am almost technically the matriarch of my family, I would want to have right now dinner with my parents, my grandmothers. I had never met my grandfathers, and my brothers and sisters. I would want to have that just immediate family here at dinner, just to celebrate everything that's happened to all of us, and just to have that. I guess not necessarily not a deep conversation, but you miss it's a long time for when you might, if you believe in that, might be able to see those people again. So it would be really fantastic with all the good things that's happened to have them all here right now.
That would definitely be an interesting dinner. And I did not know one of my grandparents, my father's father. I never got the opportunity to meet him. So I think that's an interesting perspective. And it's interesting when I asked that question, I did it probably now almost 100 times, and every single time the thought is to get to know a little bit about the guests. Excuse me, but what I don't know is what they're going to say, and there've been some overlap in quite a few answers, but a lot of times it's an answer like that where it just makes you think that it's not always a famous person or a well-known person. A lot of times it's somebody that's pretty personable to somebody, but it's got a deep meaning. So I appreciate you touching on that for a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's like, what's a life about? Being around the people you love, right?
Yeah. And especially when you didn't know certain people, it's always interesting because you say, I never got to meet my grandfather, grandmother, my great uncle. I'd love to spend some time, because you just hear really cool stories about other people in your family.
Exactly.
All right. We're going to switch lanes here now into what I call our hot seat questions. And the only rule is if you just please throw out the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. If you had only one last meal and you could choose whatever you want, what would you choose?
Oh, I would choose, oh, wow. I think I would choose like my mom's pot roast and the massive kale salad. and some kind of delicious chocolate dessert.
That was the most specific answer we've ever asked, so kudos to you. I'm
a foodie.
What is your favorite smell?
Oh, my favorite smell is flowers.
Now, Michael O'Brien and Dane Gingrich, who are buddies of ours, and they were getting on each other with that question because Michael answered honey, and to this day, he has no idea why, so I'm glad you didn't say honey.
That would have been funny. I don't know. I don't actually like the smell of honey.
Favorite sports team?
Well, I am a triathlete, so my favorite triathlete is Chrissy Wellington.
Favorite sport of all time?
Triathlon.
All-time favorite movie?
Oh, gosh. Man on Fire.
Good movie. All-time favorite book?
All-time favorite book. I have to say Creative Living Beyond, Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Liz Gilbert.
Favorite singer or band?
Sarah Bareilles.
Oh, you can't go wrong with Sarah. And then if you were in a foxhole and you could only choose one person to have your back, who would it be?
My husband, Michael.
Is Michael a triathlete as well?
He's not. He doesn't like triathlon.
All right, so before we let you go, I wanted to ask if there's anything exciting that you're working on or something you'd like to share that's coming out with our listeners.
Well, beyond my book, I'm actually revamping my website because I'm doing more speaking, and I think that's going to really ramp up more this year. So that's something to watch out for. In the next 2 months, I'm going to have a totally renovated website for people to look at and find me and have good resources on. I do have a quiz on there. I have a resilience quiz, which you probably like. If you go in and sign up for my newsletter, I think you can look at the quiz.
Oh, nice. Would I get a good 100% on it?
Everyone does.
Nice.
Everyone's resilient in some way.
You know what? That is 100% true. Everybody is in some way. So I wanted to ask if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
I think parting words is that it really is all of your experience makes you who you are. So don't feel like whatever you've done has gotten you off track or you would have gone faster. It's that non-linear path to success that gives you all the strength and perspective and power that you have today in whatever it is you're doing. So never feel like what you've done is a waste of time.
You know, I love that advice because I think a lot of times in life when you get hit head on, whether it's a challenge or an obstacle, or maybe you define it as something that you failed at, I think people look at it from the negative perspective of they failed or it didn't work. And I think what you need to do is flip the switch and say, what did I learn from this? Or what can I take out of this failure? So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all screw-ups are part of it, right?
No, I couldn't agree more. And then last question for you. I promise it's an easy one. What's the best way for our listeners to connect or follow you?
You can find me on my website. It's www.mccourtleadership.com. And my email is easy. It's elizabeth@mccourtleadership.com. And then I tweet at EC McCourt. That's my Twitter handle. And I will tell you, if any of your guests want the first chapter of my novel, I'm happy to email it to them. And if they go to my website, there is a resilience quiz on there too that they can take and certainly sign up for my newsletter as well, where I try and do some relevant leadership information and what I'm doing in the world.
Well, I really appreciate you taking some time with us to share what you shared, and I definitely would recommend that our listeners connect with you, especially if they want to get either the chapter or just find out a little bit more about what it is that you do. So I truly appreciate your time as well as what you shared with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Christopher. It's a great podcast, and it's such a pleasure to be on here speaking with you and your audience.
Thank you for listening to episode number 104. Elizabeth is quite an impressive woman, as her resume includes being a lawyer, recruiter, triathlete, consultant, writer, speaker, as well as a coach. I'm not sure how she does it all, but she gets it done. On March 6th, she also launched her first book, which is quite an impressive accomplishment within itself. Just like many of our past guests, Elizabeth begins her day with gratitude, meditation, and exercise. It can't just be a coincidence that so many of our successful guests begin their day in similar fashions. One thing Elizabeth mentioned that I truly believe is the importance of working with both good, high-quality people and companies. I think at times that is easier said than done, but as I look back and I look forward with my own life, I now realize just how important that is. Elizabeth said something that really stood out to me. She said to be scared, but do it anyway. In closing, we briefly discussed the importance of learning from our past, as these experiences make us who we are. So my question to our listeners today is, what are you scared of? What are you afraid of? And why do you allow that fear to stop you? A constant theme over the last month or so has been the importance of who is truly in your corner, on your bus, and making sure you are on their bus and in their corner as well. If you don't have those high-quality, good, positive people in your corner or on your team, now is the time to do something about it. As you crush the rest of your day and your week, surround yourself with those great, positive people and go for your greatness.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.